You spent your whole life saying yes. Yes to the needs of others. Yes to sacrifices disguised as love. Yes to enduring what you shouldn't, to accepting what suffocated you. And in the midst of all that, ... you vanished. But what if I told you that you're still here? That behind all those roles of mother, wife, daughter, caregiver, there is still you, whole, forgotten, maybe quiet, yes, but alive. This is the story of a woman who spent her life being the support until she finally decided to become the center. If you're a woman who's ever felt like you gave too much and got too little, if you've found yourself alone in your own home, if you've looked in the mirror and asked, "Where am I?" then this story is for you. Stay until the end, 'cause among silences, routines, and new beginnings, you might remember something essential. You're still here. And that's enough to start again. Subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and share it with your friends. The smell of the chicken was the same as always, a scent full of history. Golden garlic and olive oil, freshly squeezed lemon, a touch of sweet paprika that Jenna said reminded her of childhood. Helen knew that recipe like she knew the paths of the house with her eyes closed. Each spice carried something beyond salt memories, attempts, resignations. It was Sunday. As always, Helen stirred the pans with automatic movements, her shoulders slightly hunched, not just from age, but from all the weights that accumulate in the life of someone who holds everything alone. She never complained, never asked for help. It had always been that way. 62, she was still the first to wake up, the last to sit down. The only one keeping mental lists of everything that needed doing or fixing or covering with a dish towel. The kitchen bore the marks of time, tiles with small cracks. A wobbly chair for months, a kettle that whistled before it should. But the real pain came from the echo of a missing voice, her own voice. There in the heart of the house, everything beat except for recognition. The clock on the wall ticked as if it too was bored. It read 6:33 p.m. Always that time. Helen adjusted the tablecloth and looked out the window. Same buildings, same dangling power lines. Nothing in the world seemed different. But inside her, something was stirring, an old unease, long suffocated by warm meals and paid bills. When Jenna arrived, the sound of the key echoed like thunder. "Hi, Mom," she shouted from the hallway. Without looking, she had her cell phone to her ear like an extension of herself, stress written across her face. "Just a sec, okay? Let me finish this real quick." Helen listened. She always listened. But that day, she heard differently. Jenna entered her room and continued the call. The door slightly ajar allowed Helen to hear what, perhaps, should never be unheard. "God, I can't take it anymore. She's always trying to control everything. It's like my life is hers. She would just disappear. Honestly, it'd be a relief. Would be easier." The floor seemed to crack beneath Helen's feet. The words weren't knives, they were absences. She didn't know what hurt more, the content or the indifference with which it was said. If she disappeared, Helen didn't cry, didn't make a scene. She closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and quietly returned to the kitchen. The chicken was finishing browning in the oven. She got the silverware, the dish towel, the bread she broke with her hands. She sat at the table alone for a few minutes. The sound of the whistling kettle, her only soundtrack then. When Jenna returned to the kitchen, grabbing a piece of chicken with her hand like she had since she was a child, she asked, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to need your help again. The clinic delayed another payment, so can you transfer $1,000 from the account, please? And that card? Do you still have it?" Helen didn't respond right away. She just started chewing slowly, like tasting something sour. Then, looking into her daughter's eyes, she calmly asked, "Do you love me, Jenna?" Her daughter furrowed her brow, confused. "Of course I do, Mom. I'm just a bit stressed. Okay." Helen nodded. She set the fork on the plate slowly. Said, without raising her voice, "Love without respect is not the same as love. And I'm no longer a home for abandonment." I'm done. Jenna laughed artificially. Mom, you're getting too sentimental. You think I don't appreciate what you do? No, I know you don't appreciate it. The silence that followed wasn't from shock. It was from discomfort. For the first time, the roles reversed. Helen wasn't kissing someone else's pain. She was holding up a mirror. That night, after her daughter went to sleep, Helen got up quietly, opened the drawer where she kept old documents, forgotten notebooks, unsent letters. She began sorting things by type, by meaning. Childhood photos of Jenna, her mother's handwritten recipes, checkbooks, old budget spreadsheets, some pages with notes scribbled on the corners. Remember to pay Jenna's car tax tomorrow. Call her health insurance. Prescription from the checkup. It was like outlining her life by its absences. The next morning, Helen had stronger coffee, put on a shirt she hadn't worn in years, tied her hair, and left with resolve. She went to the bank, closed the joint account, canceled the extra cards, signed new passwords. Are you sure you want to do all this? The bank clerk asked, surprised. Yes. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing me. It's just me. From there, she walked a full block to the notary's office. Jask for help reviewing her will. The clerk searched, asked questions, printed papers. When it came time to sign, Helen took a deep breath and made a decision. Her inheritance would no longer go to the daughter, who asked for help without looking her in the eye. Her assets would now support other women, other Helens, invisible like her, forgotten like her, strong like her. She then looked for an institution. That's when she found out about Casa Aurora, a support center for mature women in transition. They offered shelter, workshops, support. Groups. It was temporary, but it offered what Helen needed most, a fresh beginning with dignity. She decided to go. No fuss. She packed 2 suitcases, one with clothes, the other with memories. She took the quilt she liked best, her black notebook, reading glasses, small cup, 3 books, and her heart in need of recycling. On the morning she left, Jenna was asleep, the TV in her room humming with commercial sounds. Helen left a note on the table. Daughter, taking care of you was the hardest and most beautiful story I've ever lived. But now I need to start living mine again. Don't look for me out of obligation or guilt. If you ever do, let it be for truth. With love, Mom. She closed the door without anger, just with the certainty that, to be present, she needed to stop being absent from herself. On the bus to Casa Aurora, Helen looked out the window, her palm resting in her lap as if holding something invisible. And she was, her own life, beginning to beat again. The street leading to Casa Aurora was quiet. So quiet that Helen thought she had the wrong address. The rideshare driver gave a quick, "This is it, ma'am," before pulling away slowly. She got out with 2 bags and a lump in her throat. The facada was old but renovated, a single-story house, painted a faded lavender with wide windows and low fences. On the gate, a simple sign, Casa Aurora, where women begin again. The inside was full of flowers, as if the house wanted to show that, even after weathering time, it could still bloom. Helen rang the doorbell with trembling fingers, not out of fear of what would come, but of how she might feel. She was greeted by a woman with curly hair and a calm smile. Tamara. She wore long dresses and spoke in a tone that felt like a caress. You must be Helen, right? Welcome. There's no rush here. Come in at your own pace. Helen entered physically, but her soul trailed behind. She didn't know if she could relax or trust. For the first time in a long time, she was only herself. No role, no title, no function. Tamara led her to the bedroom. It was a shared space, but harmonious. 2 beds, a light desk, a shelf filled with spontaneous books, some loose, some underlined, and a Kong-shaped lamp with half a burned-out bulb. Helen looked at the bed on the right. The quilt was handmade from patchwork, mixing unimaginable colors, burgundy with lilac, mustard yellow with aqua green. She smiled without meaning to, a bit disoriented. That imperfect aesthetic felt strangely familiar. welcoming like a child's net. Hug Dot from beyond the doorway. Feminine voices echoed down the hall. "Lou, lend me your slippers, woman," shouted one. "I'm here. Bring the hair cream too, will ya?" answered another from the kitchen. Laughter followed. Helen walked to the back veranda. She sat in one of the plastic chairs. It was there she met Lucille. Dark skin, silver. Hair tied into side buns, eyes with wrinkles that spoke before her mouth did. Hair well treated, opinions sharp. Just arrived. She asked bluntly. "Yes, I came. To try and reinvent myself." "Then this is your place," she replied quickly. "This is soil for seeds that thought they were stones." Helen let out a smile. How could a stranger say something so precise? In the days that followed, Helen met the other residents. Patrice. In her 50s, always a bit sideways, skeptical, like someone who's suspicious of others' kindness. Rosie, quiet, hands always dirty from soil, as though she made an emotional home in the house's gardens. And Marlene, the talkative one, the one who told old jokes just to hear laughter as music. All different. All united by a shared pain. Having abandoned themselves to fit into others' lives, Helen took a while to talk about herself, but she listened. Sometimes she'd just move a coffee mug between her fingers, pretending to be distracted, but quietly etching every phrase and shared wound into her heart. On the third night, she dreamed she had forgotten her own voice inside. A drawer. She woke up drenched in sweat. The next day she found a box of colored pencils on the desk. It was old, several tips worn down. Tamara had left it quietly with a note on a sticky pad attached to the side. "When words fail, draw." Helen swallowed hard. She started timidly with crooked lines, scribbled silhouettes, shadows with eyes, but no mouths. Slowly, the drawings turned into portraits of women, one with large arms juggling plates, another without feet, others screaming without opening their mouths. She drew in the silences. At dusk, at night, under the dim lamp. One afternoon, Tamara saw her on the veranda, legs crossed, drawing in her lap. She stopped without saying anything. She just looked. Helen noticed and instinctively hid the paper. "It's just playing around," she muttered, unsure of herself. Tamara crouched and looked her in the eyes. "If play is where we begin to exist, then it's serious business." Helen took a few seconds to react. But then she smiled, covering laughter with her hand. There was something there, a new kind of bond. Not dependency, nor family duty. It was presence. Listening without intrusion. On Tuesday nights, Casa Aurora hosted a tea circle. Nothing too formal. Just women sitting in the backyard, cups in hand, soft lighting, stories exchanged. Each woman could talk or not. Merely being there was enough. On her fourth Tuesday, Tamara proposed. "Today, if you want, I'd like to ask something. Talk. About a time you hid your own pain to keep a relationship alive," Lucille began. "For 19 years, I've pretended I'm fine with him being with another woman. Just to say we have an understanding. But I lie to myself." Patrice let out a nervous laugh. "I applied to study fine arts when I was younger. I got third place. My mother cried saying she'd die of shame if her daughter became a wannabe artist. I said it was fine. I dropped out. Inventing distractions ever since." Rosie didn't speak. She just ran her fingers over the leaves of a lavender pot. But tears silently rolled from the corners of her eyes. When it was Helen's turn, her stomach twisted. She thought of saying, "I'll pass," but something shifted inside her. "I gave my life to raising my daughter, and I don't regret loving her. I only regret forgetting myself behind it all. I spent so many years putting out little fires in her life that by the time I looked up, there wasn't even ash left of me. But now I want to be a flame, even if small, on my terms, at my pace." The group stayed silent. A good silence. A silence that embraces without needing to applaud. Tamara looked at Helen with shining eyes. "Then write it. Paint it. Let the world know." In the weeks that followed, Helen painted even more. Her canvases began reflecting her inner entanglements, a blend of pain and rebirth. She painted a woman intertwined with flowers, another carrying a heart on her back, a third pouring out words like blood. Each painting removed another burden. From her chest, one day, as she passed behind her, Patrice said, "You're becoming an artist. You know that?" Helen smiled shyly. "I'm just trying to understand myself." And isn't that what art is for? One afternoon, Tamara announced some news. "We're hosting an exhibit here at the house with your work. It'll be simple, small, but open to the neighborhood. We want to show what's born here inside." Helen's eyes widened. "Put the paintings on a wall." Ming, yes, you. Your story is also art." It felt strange, tempting, scary, but gradually it turned into joy. She chose 3 pieces. One was called No Words, another, When No One Saw Me, and the last, She's Still Here. On the day of the event, the house pulsed with life. Colorful cloths on windows, handmade paper flags, homemade donuts, and fennel tea. Helen sat in a corner watching people observe her pain exposed on canvas. And she didn't feel vulnerable. She felt brave. A boy, the son of a visitor, stood in front of the painting, No Words, and asked, "Is this lady sad?" Helen replied, "No, she's tired, but she's choosing to stay alive anyway." The exhibition was simple. There were no art critics, no spotlights. But inside Casa Aurora, every detail felt sacred. Paintings hung with clothesline string. Tables covered with floral cloths donated by neighbors. Glass bottles turned into improvised. Vases, residents, neighbors, young students from the school around the corner, some mothers with babies in arms, an elderly woman in a pink scarf, a street artist, most of them anonymous but connected by an invisible thread. Here, pain and beauty had a voice and no longer shame. Helen sat in the corner, bashful. She wore a burgundy dress she had kept for years in the back of a drawer. Her show-up outfit, though she couldn't even recall the last time. She had chosen to wear it just for herself. Patrice had painted a sign using Rose's black paint. Exhibition. Us Among You as art made by women who still insist on being. Just below a tag. Guest visual artist, H. Walker Helen. S. chest tightened. Her hands sweating, pain behind her temples. This was real now. "You look pale, honey," Lucille whispered, fanning Helen with a flyer. "Don't I?" Helen admitted. "I've never been seen like this. Never occupied a wall with anything but shadow." "Well, get used to it, my love. Now you own space, wall, ground, gaze." Helen took a deep breath. She imagined Jenna saying, "What's all this for, Mom? Trying to be something now?" But for the first time, Helen didn't feel ashamed. She was taking up space. Her space. People. Moved from painting to painting. A teenage girl, about 17, paused in front of the artwork titled, "She's Still Here." It was just a female face, nearly blurred, with deep, alive eyes. And a single flower blooming on the left side. "Wow," the girl said, touching the collar of her shirt. "This looks like my mom." "Looks like many women," Helen replied, even before introducing herself. The girl turned toward her. "Did you paint this?" "I did." She's got that look of someone who has never heard, never believed, but survived anyway. "Can I take a photo?" Yes, of course." The girl walked away with the image on her phone and tears welling in her eyes. That night, Helen wrote in her black notebook, "Today, a girl saw a woman who no longer remembers she exists. Today, someone spoke to the Helen who still lives in me." 2 days later, Tamara appeared on the porch with a beige envelope in her hands. "It's for you." Helen recognized the handwriting before she even touched it. Heavy, slanted lines written in a flurry. Jenna. She hesitated. Her fingertips turned cold. Tamara said nothing. Just placed the envelope on the table and left. Helen stared at it for many long minutes, heart pounding. She wanted to open it. Rip it up. Forget it. But in the end, she slowly slid her thumb under the seal and pulled the letter out. It read, "Mom." I don't even know how to begin. But ever since you left, I realized something. I never really listened to you. I only asked, demanded, drained you. You vanished. And suddenly I realized I never knew you. You were always a function. You were my safety net, even when completely worn out. Now, everything feels darker without you. Forgive me, Mom, if you can. If you still want to, if you still love me, I want to see you. Look at you, really look, without asking anything. Just be with you. Helen pressed the letter to her chest, closed her eyes. She remembered the night she gave birth to Jenna. The pain, the first time she heard her say, Mama. The dress stained with baby food that never came clean afterward. Sleepless nights, cries hidden in the bathroom. The 15th birthday party she could barely afford. The day she gave up the last of her retirement money to save her daughter's clinic. It was love, but it had also been erasure. And now, something new existed. Choice. The next morning, instead of replying in haste, Helen went for a walk with Rosie around the block. I got a letter from my daughter, she said suddenly. Rosie kept tending to the plants with her hands, as if she were caring for the whole world. Will you go back? Helen sighed. I don't know. I want to go backwards, but I also don't want to shut myself off because of hurt. Rosie, with that calm that comes from saying little, responded, if you go back, go from another place, from within yourself. A place where limits exist without guilt. The following week, Clarice, a municipal social worker, showed up at the gate of Casa Aurora, hair up in a loose bun, a small baby bump showing strong and empathetic eyes. Are you Helen Walker? I am. I saw your exhibition. It's the paintings. The phrase, she's still here, stayed with our entire team. We're leading a project on female emotional expression over 50. We need women like you. Women who've lived, who are brave, who can speak to others. Would you consider being a volunteer facilitator? Helen's eyes widened. Me? But I don't have a degree. No formal training. My world is an old notebook and leftover paint from the market. Clarice smiled. That's exactly it. We don't want a specialist. We want truth. You inspire with existence. And that's priceless. Helen went quiet. She accepted it. Began with simple gatherings. A borrowed room at the neighborhood cultural center for women sitting in a circle. The first workshop was titled, The Place Where I Left My Voice. At the end of the first session, a 71-year-old woman named Cecilia said, I love my kids, but for 30 years I didn't listen to a single song. I didn't make a single friend, because they told me a mother who loves doesn't have time for herself. Now, after hearing you all, I ask myself, and me, where was I through all this? Helen replied softly, but firmly. It was similar for me. But I've learned something. The time we stayed silent doesn't keep us from saying everything now, even if it's wordless, even if only with our hands. Cecilia stood, hugged Helen, and whispered, thank you. You gave me a piece of myself. Back, in the days that followed, more women came. Ordinary women, strong women, who had silently crossed emotional deserts. Gradually, they began singing, drawing, writing. Helen typed a working title for the first time on one of the house. Educators' computers, While I'm Still Here, fragments of a woman who nearly forgot herself. One day, sitting under the tree in the garden, she reread Jenna's letter. It's the same one from weeks ago. She cried. But not the tears of guilt. It was a warm sorrow. Yet, tender. It was love with maturity. On the next page of her notebook, she wrote, I don't want to punish my daughter. But I also won't punish myself anymore by saying yes without truth. Maybe one day I'll embrace her as a woman, not as her shield. For now, I embrace myself. Time passed, not much, in terms of the calendar. Just a handful of months. But inside Helen, it felt as if she had crossed decades. It was as if her life had started to reorganize itself from the inside. Memory settled into a calmer corner. Of her chest and the future, once sober, narrow, now had cracks of light. She never went back. There was no going back, nor did she wish to. Instead, she walked inward, toward herself. With vivid steps, without rushing. The mornings were soft. Helen woke early, even without obligations. She liked to take her time making coffee, stirring in the sugar as if recalling something. She always sat at the same communal table, serving the Casa Aurora courtyard, which now bloomed literally and symbolically. The garden grew, the women grew. It was as if the place had become an extension of their collective soul. Helen painted, less to escape herself and more to find others. She laughed with Marlene, swapped tea recipes with Rosie, debated politics with Patrice, and with Lucille. Well, with Lucille, she shared deep silences. They were soul friends, women who found each other late, but at just the right time. One afternoon during their circle, Helen was caught off guard by Clarice, the social worker who had first invited her to lead public workshops. "Helen, come sit. We need to talk," she said, handing her a folder. "What is this?" "Your name was unanimously nominated to officially lead the new Listening and Dart Center for Women 50+. Funding is approved. A brand new space is opening. And we need someone with history and steadiness. It has to be you." Helen froze. "Me? Lead a center?" "Yes, you. And not out of charity, but because many other Helens still don't have solid ground or a voice. You became a reference without shouting, just by being. And now you can be a lighthouse for others." Helen took several days to decide, not out of doubt, but out of respect for the weight of that responsibility. And when she responded, her voice was steady. "I'll accept, but on one condition: that this center isn't about me. It needs to be about all of us, all the women who are still here, even when they feel forgotten." Clarice nodded. The note was taken just as is. Name of the new Space Community Center. "While I'm still here on the day of the opening." Helen arrived wearing a simple navy blue dress, her hair tied back and decorated with a flower she picked from Casa Aurora's garden, and her old black notebook in hand. The community showed up in full. Women, daughters, granddaughters. Some men, too. Instead of rigid speeches, they held an open circle, live percussion music, and a white wall inviting any woman to paint with her fingers. Helen hesitated to speak. She watched until, in a moment of quiet, she took the microphone with a soft tone and said, "For a long time I confused silence with submission. I loved my daughter so much I erased myself for her. But I found that true love doesn't require us to disappear. I've learned that to be a woman whole after 60 is no longer asking permission to exist. And if you're still breathing, there's still time. While you're still here, you can return to yourself." Everyone stood and applauded. Weeks later, Helen received another letter. Short, no requests, just presence. It was from Jenna. "Mom, I read that article about you, read the line where you said, 'Loving doesn't have to be servitude.' It hurt, but it woke me up. I realized I do still love you. Not as a daughter who needs, but as a woman who understands. If one day you'd like to have coffee with me, just to talk. It's from woman to woman. I'll be waiting. With respect now. Love." Helen took a deep breath. This time, it was different. There was humility between the lines. There was space. "Choice." She responded after 3 days. Brief, direct, yes, but come with no guilt and no rush. "I need you to meet the woman I've become, not just the mother I was." The meeting took place at a small cafe in the old part of town. Jenna arrived first, hair tied back, neutral clothes. When she saw her mother walk in, she slowly stood. She didn't know whether to hug or wait. Helen, without hesitation, pulled the chair out. "Just sit," she said, smiling. They sat in silence for the first few minutes until overcoming the discomfort. "I'm sorry, Mom." Helen's eyes welled with tears. "I know. And I no longer expect you to ask for forgiveness. What I need is for you to see me, now as I am, and to accept that your love no longer obligates me. It chooses me, or it doesn't exist. Jenna nodded, cried subtly. A mature cry. Not the cry of a punished child, but of an adult woman learning. They talked for 2 hours about childhood, losses, solidarity, boundaries. They didn't go back to the old. There, in that cafe, they formed a new possible. At the end of the month, Helen's art book was printed by an independent publisher. 500 copies. Black cover, white lettering, and a flower embroidered in raised ink, hand-painted dot in her dedication. She wrote to all the women who said yes when they wanted to scream enough, to those who survived, to those who begin again after invisibility. While we're still here, we are alive. In the final scene of this story, Helen, now in her own small and flower-filled apartment, straightens a throw blanket on the couch, makes cinnamon tea. The wall is decorated with artworks by other women from Casa Aurora. One of them is her self-portrait. For the first time, with bright eyes and an open mouth, she sits at the table, slowly writes in the black notebook on the final page, "Today, for the first time, I realized something simple. When I loved myself gently, the world came at me with less urgency. The most beautiful place to live is inside one's own presence. While I'm still here, I exist." She closes the notebook, turns off the light, and sleeps in peace.